Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Chichester Chats. It's me, Phil. Lilith is here.
Yo.
Justin now.
Woohoo.
And, of course, the man whose name is in lights up there. It is Mr. DG Chichester.
In lights and in outlines. You got like this bold, cool, outline around me now. It's good. I feel like I'm standing out. Hi, everybody. I know we need an echo. We need an echo chamber thing.
Yeah.
Not an echo generator for our echo chamber. Good to see everybody.
Good to see you.
You too, yeah.
All right. So, yes, this time we're talking Dr. Zero number 3, which I was looking. I was like, oh, didn't you, me, and Lilith talk Dr. Zero 1 or 2 a while ago? I think it was like 2 years ago. I was like, oh, boy, time flies.
Wow.
It was something, yeah.
Yes, and it was tough to yes, kind of like reading this one was like, well, it's the second part of a 2-part story, so I'm not sure if we've done part 1 or we're just
Yeah, you know what? Because then it rang a bell because I'm like, yes, 2024. Because I remember I bought all these issues because I did bring the first one for you to sign when Lilith and I saw you at Hershey.
Mhm.
Oh, nice.
So we have to play catch up on this
Previously on the chat.
previous
2 years ago on the Chichester Chat.
it's cut like a best of reel, sort of like like little snippets.
Oh, that's what we should do.
A little recap.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, but yes, well, we did come back to Dr. Zero because I know Justin was eager to talk to you about Dr. Zero.
Yes.
So
I love Dr. Zero.
this is Justin, do you want to start us off because I know you were eager and you haven't had
Well, this was one of those, like, I don't know when it was that I originally got my Dr. Zero issues. It was a long time ago, but I just kind of got them on a random whim because I thought the covers were cool. And then I just was like, oh my God, this is an amazing story. I just love this to bits. So when I found out that we had the opportunity to talk with you about this at some point, I was really excited. I filed that away and in the back of my head, I was like, oh, we've got some Dr. Zero time coming up.
That's very cool. Yeah. I mean, that's great.
I just love this. I think this might be my favorite thing that you've written that I've read so far, because I haven't read all the stuff that you've written, but
you may be better off for that in some ways, but
it's either this or Night Stalkers for my favorite so far. I just love both of these.
Well, that's cool. Yeah, thank you,
Yeah.
thank you, Justin. I really enjoyed working on this one, and really all of them. And in we always treated sort of like Powerline. There were 3 books: Dr. Zero, St. George, and Powerline. For folks that don't know, who made up this Shadow Line universe that Archie Goodwin had originally created. And we always sort of treated Powerline as sort of like the weak link, which was unfair, in some ways, but I've really come to appreciate, all of them, in their own way, what they sort of kind of taught me. But Zero was definitely his own thing, and I love the cover. You said the covers caught your attention.
The
cover strategy, which Steve Bucelato, the editor, came up with. Always having the same artist do all 3 covers, I thought was really sharp, and he got some really high quality people working on them.
Yeah,
and
I love it.
And the logos were great too. I mean, I'm pretty sure Jim Novak did the logos, and they were really very striking and clean, and just felt like they really fit the book, each of the books.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, look at that cover. I mean, just the face on it. I mean, the you see clearly the bug eyes look like Cash Patel.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's him looking up from the Hawaiian waters. As he's coming up, fuckwad, snorkel, of the Arizona, which is just because we have to have every day, literally sink lower. So here we do,
Yes. Literally, yeah.
But yeah, I think, is this Kevin Nolan? I think this was Kevin Nolan who did these covers.
I think he did do the art on this cover. Yeah.
Yeah.
At first I thought it was Bill, but
No, Bill. Yeah,
Kevin,
Bill.
yeah.
Bill did the original set of covers, and then
Mhm.
and then that was the poster,
Mhm.
as well. But yeah, this was Kevin Nolan. But really striking stuff.
So good. Yeah, I love it. This might be my favorite of all the covers, actually. I just
Oh yeah, yeah.
whenever
They're
I
hard.
go
Go
back
ahead.
to this one really sticks out for some reason. Yeah.
Yeah, they were really something. I'm partial to the Kevin O'Neill ones, but
Mm. Mhm.
just because it's Kevin
Frost
O'Neill.
Jansen's got
Oh yeah.
one on
Yeah.
6. That's my favorite, I think.
Yeah,
Very
no, they
retro
all.
futuristic. Yeah, they're all really great in their own way.
Yeah.
It's kind of a shame, I mean, they never will. I can't imagine there'd be any reason. I think we've touched on this before, but I mean, there's just a ton of great art, a ton of great, at least decent storytelling, throughout these, and it's just, something that Marvel has never touched it again,
Mm. Mhm.
or I don't guess it just doesn't fit that whole model that they're in at all. But there's
It's
just
still
such.
part of their history, though, and
Yeah, and there's just so much good stuff in it. I mean, there's
Mhm.
really high, you don't get, a triptych of covers from Klaus Janson and Bill Sienkiewicz and Kevin Nolan and, Kevin O'Neill and Mark Chiarello and all these people. It's just, it's really a great combination of folks.
Mhm.
Yeah, I can't remember if we touched on it last time. So like, there's no reason they can't reprint any of this. It's just they're just like, whatever.
No, it's just, yeah, I mean, it's dead to them, I'm sure. I mean, Epic was always, we've touched on
Yeah.
that before. Epic was always sort of the weird stepchild down the hall, and most people probably never read this stuff, in the Marvel halls, because it wasn't part of the main, the main world, the main universe, and so like this got me no cachet, trying to break into Marvel proper. It was only when I started work on Nick Fury that sort of cracked that door open. Even though I'd done a ton of this work, right? This is, there were 9 issues of the original series. We asked Howard Mackey to come in on the 9th because we were pivoting over to the mega series that we had sort of convinced them to do to wrap up the whole universe. And, and then that's another, I don't know, I think those are 64 pages each, and there's like 7 or 8 of them. So that's a lot of story,
I mean, if they wanted, they could fold this stuff into the main Marvel universe easily.
Absolutely.
I mean, they've done it on a limited basis with some of the new universe stuff.
Well, they could, but I don't think it has any. Like, I don't think it's on anybody's radar. The only one that was ever on anybody's radar was Shrek, who was the St. George villain that became, Terror, and that's the only one who transitioned into the Marvel universe. And is the only one that I think ever regularly sort of comes up in conversation. So although every now and again you do get somebody comes up and says oh, I love Dr. Zero, I love St. George, that kind of stuff. So that's always a nice thing, as we're doing here.
Yeah, I'd love to see the whole Shadowline stuff collected in an Epic collection or some type of collection. I think it would do well. I think that, because for me the initial appeal for the Epic books was the fact that they were their own separate universe. It was its own thing. It didn't have 30 or 40 years of back history ahead of it. So it was its own self-contained thing. I thought that was a really nice, and plus they were a little bit more, I wouldn't say darker, but the tone was different with the Epic books, and they're a little bit more adult. So I think that with the right marketing now, they could definitely relaunch this stuff, and it would be a success, kind of like the Ultimates were, like in a separate.
I mean, if you could convince, I mean, if Marvel hadn't laid off, chunks of people, maybe there'd be that one fringe person who could sort of even, craft a Kickstarter around it, like some of these publishers do, let the fan, let the readers fund the book, but again, just on the basis of the, the art alone, and then, you could probably get something going there, and figure out a way to print it at a the cheapest way possible.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I'm not holding out hope for that. I think it's just nice to kind of revisit them, and there is a level of darkness to it. I mean, Zero is a manipulative megalomaniac who is posing as a superhero just to kind of twist the situations of the world in his favor. So he has no uber villain game plan, but he's neither is he a hero.
Yeah.
Although he ends up doing ostensibly heroic things, but it's he's a total self-serving narcissist in many ways. And that was the interesting conceit of what Archie Goodwin created in that idea. And then I always feel like we sort of tried to cram too much into the first issue of each one, and so they stumbled a little bit, but I think they really found their stride by the second or third issues, and really kind of work out really well. And I mean, here, the interior of this book, talk about art. I mean, it's Bill Sienkiewicz, Dennis Cowan, and Bill Sienkiewicz. I mean,
So
that's a pretty, freaking amazing, art team. So
Yeah.
I feel like if they did reprint the epic, I mean, this is what I think like Marvel and DC need. They need to go back and look at this stuff. We're like, okay, we can put out a couple omnibuses of this, because would you say, I mean, that's probably why a lot of the absolute stuff's doing good at DC, where it's like, okay, it's Batman, it's Wonder Woman, it's Superman, but it's like, I don't have to know decades of history.
Yes.
I know a lot of people are like, how do I
look
get
at
in,
that.
I was gonna say a mature tone. Yes, I agree.
Yes. Love it.
But yeah, I think that's fair, Phil. But I mean, like any of the ultimates, absolutes, whatever, they do have an enormous jump start because it's still Batman.
True.
Right. They do have an enormous jump start, because it's still whoever, Wonder Woman or something like that. Yeah. And more power to the people working on those. And, the stuff I've read is very good. But there's no reason, with any comic and the right creative team approaching it and the right editorial attention on it, that there shouldn't be an on-ramp for new readers.
Yeah.
The things get lost very quickly, in comics, unfortunately, in continuity comics, where so much is stacked in there that you're scratching your eyes out, by page 2, trying to figure out what's happening. And I mean, we've talked about this before, sometimes I've heard, hey, this is really great. And I say, oh, I should catch up on it, and I'll go to the Wikipedia page and I'll be on paragraph 4 and there's 50 paragraphs following, to try to explain what the hell is happening. It's like, I can't do it. I just can't do it. Whereas you pick up some stuff and, right away, they paint the world and they make it happen. And it's, it's a beautiful thing. So, but this has, if they were ever to come and say, hey, we're going to do it, I think that would be great. But I would actually, ask for permission and do it. I would do it for free, just to tweak the scripts on the issue ones, just a little bit to sort of like create that on ramp a little better, that you're talking about, Phil. Because I think they could use that to then open it up even in a better way. Hey, here's a whole new world, enjoy it beginning to end.
Hey, Marvel, I'm volunteering. I'll sit down with Dan. We'll you can give out a free podcast with the thing. I'll be like, oh, hey,
yeah, exactly.
Here's what you need to know.
Right. I feel they have other priorities at the moment.
I feel like they could
midnight.
Oh yeah. Right.
I don't know. Is that an ongoing thing or is that just like a October thing? What is that?
I have no clue.
It's
I
like
was so
it's
when
like horror X-Men. I see a Spider-Man thing, or was there something else?
and a horror FF, you know.
Mm.
But so
Yeah.
that was so, which are, you know, I suppose, you know, I mean, good teams on them as far as I can tell. So, I mean, maybe worth a look. When I saw it, I had other thoughts in my mind that what it was going to be. So when it ended up being, oh, vampire mutants and, you know, and, you know, body horror, Spider-Man, and, you know, I'm assuming Lovecraftian, you know, interdimensional FF type shit. That's, you know, that's wasn't where my head was at first, but ain't my circus. So I applaud them, and I hope it's great.
Yeah, God forbid they do some of that Midnight Suns with some of those original people. Jeez.
Well,
right.
That's what I was sort of thinking when I saw Midnight. I was
Yeah.
thinking, oh, they're going to like bring these guys back to the fore.
Yeah,
And,
that's the thing. Yeah, there's like no Ghost Rider, there's no Night
Right.
Stalkers, or no
Right, it's just Midnight.
Morbius.
Yeah, well, you know, whatever. You know, let it be what it's going to be.
But no, I think you can promote any of this. You know, you put out a Dr. Zero omnibus or something, and you put from the man who brought you Daredevil black armor.
That's right. Yes.
Make sure I put Daredevil on the cover. Yes.
Exactly. Right. Put Matt Murdock there. I endorse this book. You know,
Matt Murdock. This book's a hit. This book's a hit. Even I didn't see this coming.
Thank you. Where's your? Come on, you got the soundboard there. There you go.
So what were you saying? You were saying in the first issue you felt like there was too much going. Like you tried.
I think you know, Margaret Clark was, you know, and I co-wrote these, all of them, and I think, you know, we were simultaneously both, you know, so like charged up about the opportunity, right? This was a big deal for us. You know, we've been trying to kind of break in, and you know, we had a couple inventory issues here and there, but to suddenly be handed, you know, not one but 3 titles, you know, even though they were bi-monthly, you know, meaning they were coming out every other month, which, you know, probably was not helping, you know, the sales the way the direct market works. But you know, so we wanted to take big swings, but we were also, I think, feeling not overwhelmed by the work or the opportunity, but feeling, you know, there's a lot of pressure, right? A lot of pressure to suddenly have these were created by Archie Goodwin, who was still our boss. You know, he was still the boss of Epic, you know, at that time. So, you know, you wanted to do right by him and the opportunity he had given us, and do right by the, you know, the world he had created. So, you know, I think we tried to pack so much into those first issues, you know, both in terms of like, oh, these are different and we've got something to say, and oh, by the way, we also have to introduce a lot of stuff, that there was you know, I think a little bit of a stumble in achieving all that. Now that could have been, if there was, and maybe I don't think I'm being, you know, hypercritical. I'm looking at that, I think, very objectively, and I, you know, we could have been called on that, like by Steve Bucelato, who had the challenge of also his first big editorial assignment, and also still working for me and Margaret. So it's a weird dynamic all the way through. You know, we never pulled rank on him, you know, and said, "What do you know anyway?" Which would have been real like shit behavior. But you know, he was still finding his way, and Archie was kind of hands off, like I think surprisingly hands off. You know, and I would have welcomed him saying, "No, this could use a little bit more here." But that's, you know, that's what I mean by that. I just feel there's probably a panel here or a panel there, or jumping right into you know, different points of view, you know, as it sort of unpacks. I remember seeing in the first issue, where some missiles are flying or something, and there's some over dialogue of whatever the missile command or something, talking about we can't destroy them, we can't intercept them, but it looking at it objectively, I'm not sure it's clear, where the voices are coming from. So you want to wayfind things for the for the reader. So that kind of stuff. That's what I mean.
And was there like a feeling between you and Margaret where it's like this wasn't like really much of a pre-existing character, so like right out of the gate you wanted this book to do well, so you're like, okay, let's flesh out, let's get out here, let's flesh out, show everyone exactly who Dr. Zero is, and was that part
of it? Yeah, and you're trying to kind of get all that out there. You're trying to like establish, his power, and get out there that he's announced himself to the world, and the world is so fascinated, and I remember Margaret being the one who came out with the with the idea of him manipulating like the fashion industry, planting, gathering intel from them to sort of influence his costume, and then having kind of like a reverse loop that his look would influence the fashion world as well. Part of this manipulation, of public psyche, in that way, which I thought was really cool. And there's little hints of that, but there could have been, more to that, or that could have been made a little clearer as well. But yes, in that instance, it's like, oh, look, we want to make sure people really understand this is a different type of main character. I'm not going to call him a hero,
Right.
And again, like Dr. Zero was like early in your career and stuff. Like with the stuff now, like you're doing for Black Box, like Risk and the upcoming stuff, like, are you approaching that differently than you did Dr. Zero, or are there?
Oh yeah, I can write now. That's a big advantage. No, I mean, there's just there's a lot of fun stuff in this issue, even though we're coming into it as the second part of a two-part story. So and sort of like lands like, there's no talk about no on-ramp for the reader. This just kind of picks up on whatever was, and I didn't go back and reread 2. I just picked up 3 to kind of jump in, but it just starts right off, with Henry Clerk, the Edward Teller, influenced, villain and his mad, schemes and such. But there's a lot of, there's a lot from that I enjoyed there. And there's a lot of things I can see as stuff I've continued to play with and pick up on. Teller Clerk, is just a twisted, son of a bitch. And there's little, weird bits like him blowing up, cats and rockets.
Cat,
and
or a little snowball.
Right. And then, but there's a little like time, the time structure is not clear there because we were stacking a lot of things. So we're still finding our way, even through issue 3, like Snowball happening as a kid, but then there's the parallel to when he kills a general in the same way, puts him in the, general who opposes him, puts him in a rocket, and blows him up as well. But, which is a fun bit, I think. But he's, Clerk is reminiscing about it, and the way, it comes across on the page, I think the time is a little hard to track. So, when I look at things now, I think I'm much, better about getting all those pieces, into place, and then going back in and reverse engineering things to make sure that they all, line up in a much more fluid way, a flowing way, not fluid way, but sort of a flowing way, so if I did have a scene where there's a, a flashback or things like that, I think that they are placed within the story in better ways, and that they influence that, and they influence the rest of the story in the right way. And you can see that both in, Black Armor, where I used the little vignettes with his dad at the beginning, and I did something similar with Risk, probably because I was writing them, around the same time. It's not like every story I'm going to do from here on out is going to have like, look, let's open with a page 1 in the past. But it just happened to be a nice device that worked for both of those. And then, those served a purpose. They set certain things up for that story, and then we could move on from that. But I think that's the big difference is, I was always judgmental, but then I would get very insecure, I guess, when I would reread stuff, if I did reread stuff then, whereas now I'm very judgmental, but I'm I've been beaten up so much, by advertising, especially, because advertising is a very judgmental business, and you just have to keep producing. Doesn't matter. Like, creative director tells you it sucks, client tells you it sucks. You just have to shrug it off and just move on to the next piece. So here I can be judgmental, and I can just say, all right, that's not working. Move on to the next thing.
I mean, there's how many years in between Dr. Zero and
a couple. It's been a minute. Yeah. Right. But it would be, I mean, some people never advance. Some people never change their approach to things. Some people, and I think I have, and I think that's, I'll pat myself on the back and say that I've taken those lessons well, and they've led to better writing and better approaches to how I think about characters too. Now I feel I'm much more character led. By that I mean I sort of listen to the characters, and they kind of tell me where it's going to go. Whereas at that point, I think we would force characters sometimes into situations just because it was convenient for us.
Well, I mean, you've improved, and how well Daredevil Black Armor was, because even your mom was like, hey.
Yes, exactly. Even my mom, who's going to steal my copies of all the variant covers. Yes.
I love that. Were these books all planned out to be like miniseries, or were they?
No, they were meant to be, as ongoing as they could be. I mean, the Archie's strategy, which was, I think smart, in a certain way, was, Epic was, we did a lot of great titles. I'll defend, 90% of them, to the grave, of what we were doing. But Epic was so creator led, that was, it was a proto image in some ways, in that way, where there was no strict identity, so the titles were all over the map. Whereas, say, Vertigo, which we were, kind of in friendly competition with, at least in terms of production values, had a very distinct identity, right? This is a Vertigo book. And I think that hurt us, and Archie thought that hurt us, with the store owners, because they were like, well, what's Epic? We may love an Electra Assassin, and maybe we sort of like a Moonshadow, but we don't even really realize that Gru is an Epic title or something like that. So, his thinking and hope, since we were kind of in the cusp of the universe movement, is that by creating a universe of titles, retailers would lean into that a little bit more, like, oh, Epic has those superhero titles. Oh, and look what else they have, right? They would start with the superheroes, which was their laughing place, their safe place, as it were. And then they would branch out into the other titles that Epic had available. So, it was kind of a Trojan horse, I guess, in a way. And, if they had sold well, then, God willing, They could still be running today. But it became clear, at a certain point that the numbers weren't there, and it wasn't financially feasible. But so we got out ahead of that, though, before they came and said, the chopping block is here, where the ice cream man cometh, and we said we'll pull the plug if you but let's green light a maxi series, which became Critical Mass, and we'll wrap everything up, which is a weird thing for them to agree with, because if these weren't doing so well, now we're going to launch a massive 6-7 issue maxi series in a premium format, no less, because they were all like perfect bound. And get ourselves another several hundred pages of comics out of that. But they agreed to it, and I haven't read Critical Mass in forever and a day, but I remember really being very pleased and proud of what we did, for the characters and the line, and how it all kind of actually developed certain storylines more, and then kind of brought it all to a pretty good close. And that story brought back, Henry Clerk, who's the villain in this one, as sort of the trigger, if you will, for that story and everything that was going on there.
Do you think it was the math? They were like, well, if we do this miniseries, if you added everyone's numbers together, it'd be like, okay, this might sell decently.
Yeah, there was some of that. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I don't remember exactly, but I think it was something along those lines. Well, each title can't sustain its own thing, but if we put them all three together, that's good. We'll get, we'll have these artists on it. Maybe I don't know, maybe the perfect bound stuff was selling a little bit better. Whatever, snake charming we did, it worked, and got them to green light it, and then as I said, we stepped off with 8, and then asked Howard Mackey, who we both liked as a writer, but he was like, why me? I don't think he took it. He seemed very he seemed kind of a little bit put out that we had sort of approached him, but as I said, we liked Howard and liked him as a writer, so we thought he would do justice to that last issue while we pivoted to this. Although in retrospect, I'm not sure why we just didn't end the series with 8 and then just go directly to this. So I can't remember the rationale behind that. Maybe 9 was already pre-sold and had to be done in terms of a direct market thing. That might have been it.
Yeah, I don't know if I told you this last time. I don't remember seeing a lot of ads for the Epic line when I was reading comics around this time.
Either, yeah.
The Epic line
showed up in the Epic books.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Stuff. Yeah, it was. Yeah, exactly, Lilith. It's sort of
if you like this one, we got 2
more.
We've got 2 more.
Yeah,
I saw it
because
Alien Legion, and that's all Epic stuff.
Right, you were reading it. And it was a nightmare. That Fabian Nicieza guy, he was a horrible person to work with. Because Fabian, for folks who don't know, started in sales and promotions. But there was, but there is some, love Fabian. Let's make that clear. But there is truth to the way any comics promotion thing works, right? And maybe any promotion anywhere works. You get your promotion dollars when you sell the things that sell. Right, to a certain extent. So the promotion dollars went to the X books and the Spider books, and stuff like that. And
damn Carnage.
Damn Carnage. And so it was harder. And Epic was weird and eclectic. So we got money now and again.
So much misinformation about Epic. damn
Like
take
what?
dear Jono.
What?
Like they was
What
like,
did?
it's not really like I remember there was like a point in time like somebody was like there's like an interview and they were like, oh, so Marvel's like they like kind of cut something for Epic, like their promotion or something like that. And they're like, so you guys aren't doing creator owned anymore. They're like, no, we still have Epic. We're still doing creator owned. And it would just kind of like come up like every so often about it until, you know, Epic was no more. But like it was kind of just really weird in the industry how people kind of treated Epic and like creator ownership at that time, especially with that like weird thing because like it's Marvel but it's not. It
Well,
just was like always
there were people within Marvel, and
yeah.
I will not name names, but powerful people, who hated that we were wasting, quote unquote, time and money on this weird shit, right?
Oh, wow.
And it became confused perhaps a little bit, Lilith, when we started to do higher premium versions of some of the characters like Elektra Assassin or Havoc, Wolverine, where Walt and Weezy Simonson, wrote the story, but Jay Muth and Kent Williams did their amazing illustrated work. But I literally heard, from a person who shall not be named, this book would have sold so much better with some real art on it. And
Oh, wow.
and that's like, so, and that was still characters that they knew and and wanted to champion, whereas I would say like a Moonshadow or a Martial Law, Dreadstar,
Dreadstar, yeah.
I think I literally have the Archie Goodwin quote though about I feel like every time somebody asked him about it, he'd be like, it just allows for more personal vision in the material. Like,
well, it's true. And
it's true. Like I just remember reading that like at least 5 different times from 5 different interviews.
But that's what Archie championed, and that's what we all championed, and that's my job was to make your book the best it could be based upon what you wanted it to be. And some people wanted that. Bill Sienkiewicz dearly wanted that, on Stray Toasters, the book that he did. And I worked very closely with him, to all hours. 2:00 in the morning, Bill. Good to talk to you. And was happy to do it. Whereas some other creators, got their nose bent out of joint when I tried to give them feedback on stuff. Like, I know you want to get to, this isn't really clear on this page. Let's do this instead, and then 10 minutes later, Archie would come, walking into my office saying, so-and-so just called, says you're giving them grief. Let them do what they want, And then, but it's like, it's their book. But most people were they knew what we were trying to help them get to that personal vision of them. And the strategic thing of Epic was always, at that point, there were people who didn't want to work for Marvel at all. And so, this was I guess, Trojan horse of its own, whereas you have a great experience with Epic and maybe you'll go do a book over at Marvel. Right. That, and I think that worked, that worked out, very well, for certain people and certain projects. And it began to introduce Marvel, frankly, at a too early a stage for most people, to more premium production, right? They were still doing regular old comics. They were doing that awful flexi print thing that was in vogue at the time. And we were doing fully, full, not full color art, illustrated art, painted art, slick paper, premium production values. And we were insistent, and Margaret was the queen of precision, in terms of making sure that the artistic, integrity, was there. She got into it toe to toe with some production manager on the Marvel side who took over the bullpen at one point, when this person tried to kind of paste balloons onto painted artwork. Instead of doing what you would do, which you'd lay an overlay of vellum, the balloons be pasted on the vellum, there'd be separate photographs taken for the art and the
Mhm.
and the lettering, and then the two would be sort of comped together in a pre-computerized, age. But yeah, we were very committed, to making sure people's vision, was maintained, and people, I think, respected that. I think I think most creators were very enthused that somebody was supporting them in that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm still impressed with how the colors appear on this paper. I think this is what the Mando paper they used to call this back then.
Yeah, I don't remember.
It was like a heavier, thicker
Right.
stock, but
Right.
it made the colors look so much better. And
Yeah.
I
And we got good people. I mean,
Yeah.
Steve did not have any reservation about calling anybody, to bring in some big guns and some real talents on stuff.
That's great.
So
Yeah, 'cause
I love to see. I was reading the quote unquote editors comments. In this case, it's zero input, and I love to see that people have always thrown around the word fascist without actually understanding what the word fascist means.
Oh, yeah.
Or
For us as a society,
right, or dismiss the word fascist, as if it doesn't mean
right.
Yes.
I don't think Dr. Zero's a fascist at all. A narcissist, yes, but definitely not a fascist.
Yeah, I don't think he was. No, I never. Having written some fascists in my day, yeah, I never, looked at him that way. But a narcissist, megalomaniac, probably a borderline sociopath. Yeah, all those good things. But yeah, fascist, because he was only interested in himself. I mean, ultimately, even he didn't really care about the shadows. Of the shadow line. Like his Archie's point from the Bible, that we carry through from there was, he had chosen to kind of emerge from the shadows and take on this role because mankind was fucking up the world so much that it was going to ruin it for him.
Yeah.
Not ruin it for the shadows, but ruin it for him because he had been around forever and a day, almost literally. And so, I can't stay out of this, and I can't influence it the way I want just from, pulling the levers of power. I have to get out in front. So it was the ultimate, get off my lawn, movement, from, but that's not a fascist mentality.
Exactly.
He didn't want to rule the world. He just wanted the world to not
suck,
annoy. Yes, suck for him, right? Yeah.
Okay.
Very relatable. I'm just saying, very relatable character.
Yes.
Yeah. We could all relate to a little Dr. Zero.
He just wanted to push just enough so things were good for him. Yes.
Right. Or push a lot so things are good for him.
Yeah. However much he had to. Yeah.
Right. And then, and being, and then, yeah. And Clerk was a good, a good foil for him.
But yeah,
I feel like you liked blowing things up in this book overall. I feel like there was a lot of explosions in these.
Yes,
there
were lots of explosions.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's an early, I think that's a,
and it's the 80s. I get it. I love
and I think that's also a good early writer thing. Let's blow shit up.
I'll wait for the quote. Young Dan just liked to blow shit up.
Yeah, everything was always blowing up around us, in terms of popular movies and whatever else.
People were walking away from explosions.
Yeah, let's
sunglasses
in slow motion.
Yeah. I mean, I think Stephen King said that once, even like The Shining, it's like, it was in the book, it's like, at some point I just didn't know what to do. So just blew the hotel up, and the boiler's going to go up. And but there's some good explosions here too. I mean, I think
I love things exploding.
I
that was
think
not a dig at all.
And that was also a great way. Because I think this might have been the first time we really dug a little bit more into the what did he call it? The zero effect or something, where you could sort of shield things, within that and capture it. And so, doing that to sort of contain Clerk's, whatever nuclear disaster that he was trying to unleash. We'd done a scene with a little version of that, I think, in issue 1, but this was just another way to kind of play it out. And but yeah, I'll be the first to admit, we did blow things up, and we had a good time doing it. So there you go.
And, I had a good time reading it.
I mean, I think we talked about.
Phil, tell him I want a bazooka for my birthday. That's no dig. That's no, I love things.
He's been asking for a bazooka for years. I think we have to start with a flamethrower then.
Yes.
But no, again, if there's any medium where stuff needs to blow up, it's got to be comics, because again, it's
Absolutely.
like movies, it's like special effects. How much do they want to pay for it? How real can they do this? Blah 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 blah. Comics, it's just like it's like, here, draw an explosion, boom, done.
Right, but then what do you do around it, right? You do an explosion where it's just like, a big bright, light, and then there's stuff going off it, or you're gonna have an artist who's gonna draw every single bit of, detritus, exploding around it. What does it lead to? Or is it just stuff goes boom?
Do you remember why you titled it Starlight, Starbright?
Does it tie into the ending with Sheila?
And they're looking at the stars, first stars.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I think that's it. I think that it was, and it might have had something to do with I can't remember what issue 2 was titled. There might have been, a part of that. But I could be wrong. But I think it ties into the ending with Sheila.
It was the Judas goat was.
He's the Judas, right. Yeah, so that's different. Yeah, the Judas goat was because a lot of, I was so fascinated with like nuclear, power at that point, and that's where Clerk really kind of came out of, and so much of his rantings and Edward Teller influenced kind of insanity, was sort of based in pseudo fact, and there was even more of that in Critical Mass, as it got, into all of that bit. But the Judas Goat was a pretty good title. There were some good titles in St. George too. I remember with something about the Devil's Tattoo or something like that with Shrek. Maybe the first time we introduced Shrek. But
see, you give so much shit to Young Dan, but Young Dan had talent. Come on.
Young Dan had ambition, and he had it's the Ira Glass quote, I think we've talked about before, which I can never remember verbatim, but I'll leave that to Ira Glass, where it's like, when you start out, when you want to do something creative, you want to do it because you have taste, and you're really jazzed by certain things, you're really jazzed by certain movies or comics or books, that are really good, and you have the taste to know that that's great, and you aspire to that, but you don't have the ability yet, so you try for it, and you reach for it, and maybe you get partway there, but you also get some things wrong, and then there's a lot of people who just give up, right? Because it's not easy, and it takes the work to get past that point where your talent can match your taste. So I had taste, Margaret had taste, together we were two great tastes that went great together. But but you have to, so we would, we'd pull in cultural, references, like I said, the fashion idea, the title, that had, more import, trying to kind of layer on things. And sometimes we got it really, really right. Sometimes we were almost there, but, we needed a little bit more, Yeah, there it is. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's a great.
Yeah.
It's a great thing. I mean, I should get that tattooed on my arm so I could just
Do you have any more room?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, this one might be a bit long.
I should talk.
But it is a great. But it is a great. You know, it is
yeah.
a great encapsulation of sort of the creative process. You know, and your well, not the creative process so much as your creative growth. You know, and then your work, as it says right there toward the end, your work can be as good as your ambitions.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, any other questions for
Dr. Zero?
What? No, I do have a thought though.
One of these, you know, the inside covers of these things, you know, I don't know if you guys, you know, the real inside, you know, we just did weird things with the inside covers, you know, which were not really smart in that way. But I know there's one that was like, there's like a TV guide entry as if there's a Dr. Zero movie, and you know, I'm dressed up as Dr. Zero, so it's kind of funny. But
oh yeah, there was a Bond reference in this.
Oh yeah. Of
course, yes.
Nice. Yeah.
Mr. James Bond super fan over there.
Love it.
I have not, you know, I've cleared out so many things off my bookshelf, and I have over the years, and I still haven't been able to give up like the first like James Bond in the movies book I had ever bought, and my copies of all the paperbacks. But so at some
Good
point,
things to have. You had to keep your physical media nowadays.
That's right. Absolutely.
All right. So next time, I figure we'll go. We touched on them once or twice, but I figure we'll do Night Stalkers again.
Woohoo!
5 and 6.
Nice. Is 5 and 6 a continuous story? I don't remember. I have to go back.
It is one story, and
Okay.
it features a certain guest star who's been floating around lately.
The Punisher one. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Clicks.
Yeah.
Who's
Because
clicks?
we were trying to boost the sales. Can we throw in Ghost Rider?
Yes,
Well,
it
let's
was.
throw the Punisher.
It was the 90s.
Can we get Wolverine in on that?
I was gonna say Wolverine and Spider-Man were busy, so yes, the Punisher up in 5 and 6.
Stopping by the Supernatural. That was a good story. Those are all I enjoy all the Night Stalker stuff. So that's that'll be a fun one to dig it out and re-examine it.
So yeah, Night
Very
Stalkers 5 and 6, and then any news on the new issue front? Any black box news?
Demetrios says he's got a new lead on a better distributor, but I don't know any details beyond that. But he seemed pretty excited by it. So fingers crossed that that stuff kind of gets some possibilities in life there. Talking to Carl this week about locking down the rewards on that second Axel's Infernal, and hopefully we'll have it out and about by midsummer, or the campaign itself, so that's the stuff there. I just put up an ebook version of Street Writers, which was an omission that wasn't there before. So folks who want a bunch of writing tips and tricks, I think that kind of worked out pretty well. Justin, you can vouch for that, maybe.
Absolutely.
But that's an ebook now, so it's easier for folks to grab hold of. And then the next 2 weeks, if you're in Oklahoma City or thereabouts, I'll be there next weekend, Memorial Day weekend, and then the following week, I'll be in Nashville because you're clearly a glutton for air travel punishment. So get back and then turn around and go back and go to Nashville. So those are 2 Galaxy Cons. 1 week after the other.
Man's busy.
Yeah. So I'll probably regret it. But we'll see.
So the weekend after, don't bother him. He's going to be in a coma.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. No air travel.
All right. Well, thank you, sir. Once again,
guys.
Always very generous with your time. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Thank you, all 3 of you. It's always fun. Good visit. And I hope you guys stay well and enjoy the well, the summer's almost here, so
Yeah.
rushing right into it.
All right.
Very good. All right, go find a national monument to desecrate, and
All right, safe travels, sir.
take care. Be good. Bye.
Bye. Yeah, I was gonna say, do we be like, no, I don't think
I
so.
pick the Washington Monument.
I was okay. I'm going to Mount Rushmore.
Of course, Lilith picks the big phallic one. Of course.
I'm going to
Of
blow
course.
all
Come
those
on, I had
faces
to
off
beat
that
Justin
mountain.
to it.
Then when you say Dr. Zero's not a fascist, I wanted to say, yeah, he's not looking for a ballroom or anything.
Right? Yeah. He doesn't have a golden statue of himself out front.
Yikes.
You're talking about Homelander or the other.
Facts are stranger than fiction at this point.
I know, wasn't that like the last season of The Boys? They're like, yeah, they think we're keeping up with real life events, and meanwhile they were writing the show, and they're like, damn it, he's doing the stuff we wrote.
He's copying us now.
Why do you think they didn't take a break? A 2-year break? They couldn't.
Yeah, they think they're copying real life. Yeah. All right. So yeah. So 2 episodes from now, we're gonna we'll cover the boys fast. Well, I was gonna say season, but series finale. And
don't worry, they got another spinoff coming for you.
And it's been a while, but we'll talk the end of Invincible season 4. But
I'm still not recovered yet, so
okay. All right, but next time, again, you thought this was good. Wait until next time when we talk some Spider-Girl with Tom DeFalco, Ron Friends, and Pat Olive. So, like I said, probably the biggest.
We're gonna have a party, y'all.
Yeah.
It'll be a full house.
I can't wait. That's gonna be so awesome.
Yes. I already sent the link to all 3 of them. They're down, they're ready to go. So
Love it.
And on a personal note, go subscribe to the damn Capes and Lunatics Patreon. We are at 998.
2 more.
We're crawling to the finish line. I'm telling you.
And you might get a prize if you're the 1,000th subscriber. If you're subscriber number 1,000.
Yeah, you gotta take a screenshot and send it to us.
Yeah.
You get a prize. We don't know what yet, but
topless Justin pics. I don't know.
Yeah. Where there's a will, there's a way.
Oh my. And Will says, I promise nothing. All right. All right. So so send us your questions and your Spider-Girl thoughts for Tom and Ron and Pat to CapesandLunatics@gmail.com or call the voicemail 614-382-2737. That's 614-38-CAPES. And remember, you can find us on pretty much all social media, including the TikToks, which are been very nice to us. Help support us buying merch at TeePublic and Spring. Capes Lunatics merch, Podfather Film merch, Lost Library of Legends merch. Help support your now.
Brand new.
And Lilith Hellfire's favorite method, think you're in a relationship with her, just rain random money on us through the Cash App link.
We need the money. Gimme.
And
I got 7 mouths to feed, you know?
True. And of course, the Patreon, where again, not only do you get at least one exclusive uncensored episode just for subscribers every month, you get early access to all these regular episodes, like you could have had this episode early. And of course, when you do subscribe, you can suggest or ask for topics for us to discuss. So as I said, the best value for your money, the only safe legal way to tell Lilith Hellfire what to do.
Shut up, Phil.
So go run and go subscribe to patreon.com/capesandlunatics.
Not gonna be able to use that drop too much longer.
I know.
While we're gonna have to get some clean versions of some drops.
Yeah.
I'll bleep half that. But
now just get fresh, clean drops.
For all you prudes who don't want us to swear, just get us to 1,000. There you go. All right. Rob, who? I haven't heard from Rob. All right. And of course, if you need more Justin the Owl in your life, so go check out the Lost Library of Legends.
That's right. The first episode of Luminosity, the Dr. Light podcast, is coming out this month, so keep your ears open for that. And also some more episodes of The Weeds of Crime, The Shadow in Comics, and Adventures into the Mindscape, the Sleepwalker podcast.
Ooh. I know who you do that with. Howdy, y'all. Wild like an animal. Oh, you mean the 90s Sleepwalker?
The greatest comic of all time.
Yes, that one.
Push is a squishy.
All right, and remember, go check out Dick Grayson Boy Wonder on Amazon. Go help our friend Kristen by go picking up Dick Grayson Boy Wonder. You will learn something about the character. I promise you. And it's good summer reading. And more of you people should be summer reading.
That's right. It
Again.
shows.
True. And again, follow me all over social media at PodfatherPhil and go pick up the damn t-shirt. All right. All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Again, Tom DeFalco, Ron Friends, and Pat Olaf next time to talk all things Spider-Girl. And then we'll get to the finales of Invincible and The Boys. All right. Join us next time. Remember, don't be a fascist.